The World Health Organization estimates that around 121 million people worldwide suffer from some sort of depression. Every year, that equates to more than 7% of us having to suffer from agonizing loneliness, mental and emotional darkness, and numerous other symptoms of varying degrees, all attributed to the singular, albeit broad disorder, depression. Creative type people have been proven to be the group most affected by depression. Think people like Chester Bennington, Robin Williams, and Michelangelo. But what's the link? Writers, musicians, inventors, dancers, scientists, architects, teachers, and any other creative type you can think of are singled out more often than not when it comes to depression. Van Gogh being a primary example of the tortured creative archetype. So once again, is there a link between depression and creativity? And if so, what is it? To find out, we turn to the science of the mind and the theory of human evolution. Of course, throughout history, many world-leading thinkers have suffered from depression, including historical naturalist and evolutionary expert Charles Darwin. Darwin's depression not only impacted his personal life, but it also became a primary topic of his very work. Because of depression's wide reach on the global population, Darwin had to explore it in order to make sense of his evolutionary theories. Because Darwin's theories of evolution claim that only the strong survive, depression seems to be a gigantic mistake. From a macro perspective, depression typically leads to a lack of motivation, and often a lack of motivation to eat, exercise, or to do much of anything, and can lead to thoughts of suicide. How could such a health and population hindering disorder find its way through hundreds of years of evolution if evolution's endgame is survival? And what does this all have to do with creativity exactly? The answer may surprise you, so let's look at the facts. Now, to make things easy, there is definitely a link between creativity and depression, but it's not what most people think it is. While the possible solutions are many, the mind is a very complicated subject after all. Countless psychologists and psychiatrists tend to agree that depression is amplified in those who tend to ruminate on their thoughts. Now that's a pretty big word, but it simply means to think deeply on something. Now think about this. Rumination is one of the major keys of thinking like a creative genius. To be creative is to make sense of and connect the small details of everything we experience, the good and the bad. Creatives naturally tend to think more, and they think about their very thoughts too. When we ruminate, however, our brains are naturally drawn to the things that are vital to our health. Pain and suffering are such immense experiences, even if they're short-lived, that those who ruminate tend to loop through those painful experiences more often than those who don't. Are you starting to see the evolutionary link yet? For example, someone who doesn't take the time to think about their thoughts may have had a stressful day at work or school, but when they come home, it's much easier to forget about it. On the other hand, there are certain types of thinkers who are naturally drawn to play out the stressful events over and over again in their head, thinking about what happened, what they could have or should have done differently, how the details of what occurred will affect the rest of their lives, and so on. Creative thinkers tend to fall into the latter group, replaying events over and over and over again to better understand them. A result of focusing on these thoughts, then, is immense depression or feeling of hopelessness. Now we're onto something. This rumination to depression process is evident not only in creatives, of course, but everyone. If the average person finds themselves in a moment of deep reflection, particularly about a stressful event, they too are likely to encounter a state of depression, though it may not always last as long as someone who continues to ruminate on the event. For creatives, that depressive state happens to be longer lasting and more intense due to their innate desire to simply keep thinking on it. Creativity is all about thinking, so it only makes sense that all of that thinking would lead to manic episodes of feeling hopeless, alone, or like a failure. Maybe you felt those emotions a lot yourself. So the answer seems quite clear. It turns out that depression doesn't make you creative per se. In fact, the opposite is more often the case. A creative person who spends his or her time ruminating on their thoughts is far more likely to suffer from major depression. Thank you for watching the video, but before you go, I have a question for you. Have you been struggling with depression lately? Or maybe just struggling to cope with getting through your day? There's this great brand that I discovered named Intention Inspired. They're doing a really cool challenge called 30 Days of Love. If you're struggling with self-love, then this challenge is perfect for you. It works by sending you daily affirmations, exciting challenges, powerful yet simple exercises, and inspiring quotes. But most of all, it allows you to connect with a community of like-minded people who are going through the exact same things you are. Experience deeper love from the inside out by focusing on the foundations of what love is and what it really isn't. So what could you do if you loved yourself more for just 30 days? The link is down in the description if you guys want to check them out. And as always, keep seeking more.